At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Help My Unbelief podcast, the #1 Christian podcast designed for the unbeliever. What's up, duders?
How are you doing today?
You know what duders is off of?
No, I don't, but I figured it had to do with something of your age frame rather than mine.
I don't know. This would probably be a movie from your age range. Duder?
The fact that it was made sometime in my lifetime versus your lifetime?
Well, no, because that's a broad range. Because didn't they have like Jurassic Park? Like that's based on a true story, right? And didn't that actually happen when you were alive? When you were a kid?
Jurassic
yeah,
Park
Jurassic
was
Park
based on a true story.
Yeah, and it was from your lifetime, like when dinosaurs walked the earth, right?
Okay.
Sheesh.
All right. That was good.
That was a good one.
That was good.
No,
yeah, cavemen. Yeah, that's
remember?
That's why I have my hairstyle.
You never seen The Big Lebowski?
Yeah, I was had kids by that time.
Yeah, that was made in like the 90s or something, wasn't
it? Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because if it was in the 70s or 80s, I probably don't remember it.
So would you ever watch Star Wars now? Do you think Star Wars is a Christian movie?
Christian?
Yeah. Or do you think Star Wars is a movie that Christians should be watching?
Boy, that's a good question, to be honest with you. I really don't have a clue.
Yeah.
I used to like science fiction quite a bit. I've read several books on that. And, I mean, I enjoyed it to a degree, but not to the degree my brother did.
I always use like Pastor Gary as a reference whether we should be doing something, because if Pastor Gary's doing it, it's probably okay. And Pastor Gary had a Star Wars reference in one of his sermons a couple weeks ago.
I never really thought about it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, Star Wars.
I remember when Star Wars first came out. It was the only movie that I ever actually bought my brother's tickets, because it came out right near their birthday, and one brother was born on the 14th and one brother was born on the 15th of November.
Did you see Kevin today?
Yeah, I went to breakfast with him, yes.
How's Kevin?
Yeah, we had like an hour and a half.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Nice conversation, good time.
Yeah? Did you convert him?
That wasn't really the goal.
No? Okay, well.
No.
All right, well.
Okay, on that.
Just say no, Zach, I failed. Just say no, Zach, I failed.
I can't. Because I will say this. They served our breakfast. I was conversing with him. He starts cutting into his, I think he had Eggs Benedict this morning. And so he starts cutting in it, and then he sees that I haven't done anything. And I didn't intentionally do it this way, but I hadn't touched my plate yet. I just put some pepper and salt on it. And he goes, "Oh, I forgot, you pray."
Oh, he prayed with you?
No, he just waited for me to pray.
Yeah.
He gave me that opening in a restaurant in front of him to pray for my meal.
Yeah, he respected you. That's cool. That's great.
So I did it out loud.
Oh, that's my guy right there. I see what you did there. Sheesh.
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
Yeah, I thanked God for him and asked for protection on his trip, and that his meeting goes well. And
show him a sign, Lord. Give him evidence.
Yeah.
Give him the evidence he deserves.
Soften my brother's heart, Lord. Soften my brother's
There you
heart.
go. Pull the scales over his eyes, God.
Scales off of your eyes.
Pull the scales off his
Satan
eyes.
puts the scales on.
Let him see his debauchery, Lord.
Matter of fact, in all honesty, I know y'all probably didn't read it today, but the devotional that I wrote today actually mentions blinders, Satan putting blinders on your eyes.
I think I read yours today. I've been reading yours. I think I read yours today.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I've been reading it. Because, dude, I've realized in this walk, especially now, like the more I try to eliminate sin out of my life, the more I try to live all in for God, the more I get attacked. And I'm going to your Bible study on Thursday. I'm reading your Bible verses. I'm devoting a little bit of time to the Lord every day. I'm going to your Bible study on Sunday. I'm going to church on Sunday, mostly both services almost every week. I'm going to church on Wednesday, and it's still not enough. That's just the bottom line.
And yet, when we first started this, you were like, man, you got way too much.
Well, I think we can all admit that I'm not the smartest. I'm not the brightest crayon in the book. I think we can all admit that. Or maybe I'm smart. I don't know. And I just learn things the hard way. That's for sure.
Now, that I do. I do learn things the hard way. But one of the things...
I don't know. Not as hard as me, dude. Jesus. Like, I feel like I have to learn everything the hard way. Everything.
You know what? I'll give you the gold star for that one.
Yeah. It's bad, dude. It's bad, man. It's bad. And I don't know why. It doesn't
have anything to do with me having like 25 years more experience than you at that.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe you tapped out. Yeah. You're like, I'm done, man. This stinks.
And yes, you are right. I tapped out to God. I surrender.
Yeah.
I surrender. Kyle, there it is for you.
But it's not
surrender.
It's not enough, man. You cannot devote enough time to God, and I think it's harder. It's harder because of the age that we live in too. Social
yes, because
media.
they're coming at you at so many different angles. I mean, just in my lifetime, when I'm going to say this, and I know that I'm going to regret it. From the time that we had 3 channels on TV and a black and white TV, and now we have 1 million channels. 1 million avenues.
I mean,
for
a million
stuff to come
different
through the TV
apps. Yeah,
but we also have, we have it coming at us in all
everywhere.
forms or fashion because we carry around a TV on us now. With this phone.
High def.
Yeah.
High def.
Where, there's no static, there's no holding the antenna or, anything like that nowadays.
I know Bladen listens to the show. I want to get your point of view. I've already told him my point of view on it. But he had someone come up to him today, and he texted me. He had someone come up to him today and told him that it was rude because you remember that cross I used to wear every week?
Mm-hmm.
I used to wear it every week on my show, and I used to wear it out every week. Well, he's seen that from the show or whatever, and we had lunch last week, and I took it off and I gave it to him.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I gave it to him, and I told him the reason why I was giving it to him and why it meant so much to me because the trials that I'd been through whenever I was going through them, I bought that necklace for a reason. And you could see like the colorings wore out on it because it says that you have to guard your heart. I had it as a reminder for me because that's exactly what I didn't do before I was going through that trial. I earned every bit of that trial that I went through. I've talked about this a million times. I earned every single minute of it. And I would just grab that necklace sometimes because I'm like, okay, God, if you just get me out of this, I promise I'll guard my heart. And I probably won't because I'm an idiot, but I will actually. I'm going to make a devotion to that now. But I used to grab it and just be like, come on, man. It's just a very hard time, hardest time I've ever been through. I've already talked about it. I don't have to go back through it. But I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. And I felt like I said, you're going to need this. You're going to have to guard your heart because he's going. I mean, can you imagine what it'd be like to be in high school now? I mean, it'd be tough. And he's a brand new Christian. And so I gave him the necklace and I said, here, you can use this to guard your heart, a reminder to guard your heart wherever you go. And he got it. But someone came up to him today and told him that it was rude and unacceptable for him to wear that necklace outside of a shirt, that he should hide it. And that, and the person made up a good point. They said, you should show people with your actions that you're a Christian, not by the clothes you wear and by saying it.
You're absolutely correct. So my action would have been to take it out and make sure it's centered.
Yeah.
I mean, to me.
Why do you wear your necklace out like that? Yeah, I know you have a reason. Why do you do it? Why do you wear that cross out?
So that you can see it.
Yeah.
Look, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but when I was a biker, I wore all Harley gear. All right. I mean, everything, including my glasses, had Harley Davidson written on the side of them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what you saw was that dude obviously has a bike. Right. I mean, I wasn't the hardcore 1%er. I was a lone wolf, meaning I never associated with any other groups. Right. But I rode with buku of them. But one of the things was that if you saw me, you saw a guy who had a bike or rode a bike or was part of the bike world, right?
Yep.
All right. Now, God started working with me. Man, I probably hadn't even started coming to church a year when God started working with me on my clothing, and that I had branded myself by the world standards.
Yeah.
Okay. So he started working with me on it, and I had already had crosses. I've worn crosses most of my life. They were jewelry, and they were acceptable jewelry by my mom.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any buff from her on it until I wore a cross earring, and she did not care for that at all. So,
but you probably had a mullet, and
I never had a mullet, dude.
No.
You'd
have looked great with a mullet.
I had long enough hair at one time to really pull that off, but
if I made a request for you to have a mullet, would you do it?
No. My hair grows too slow. Take forever to grow out a mullet.
I just really like to see that.
No,
but go ahead.
I think I'll leave that up for the OSU fans.
Oh man.
Okay.
Man. Okay. And so why do you wear them out?
Back to it. All right. Yeah, back to it. I wear this kind of shirts now to represent that I stand out for Christ.
Your brand.
Okay. I'm branding myself for Christ now. One of the reasons that I do that is so that when people like Darcy and I have been stopped at Walmart and said, "Are you a Christian? Will you pray for me?" They saw that I had a shirt and a necklace on that has a cross on it, and it represents something to that person.
And you want
enough
opportunities
for them to ask me to pray for them.
You want opportunities like that.
Yeah, I prayed for her in the middle of Walmart bread aisle. You bet.
You probably went home happier than what you went there, too, because you got the chance to do that.
Definitely.
So to answer...
Anytime I get to stand
So
for
your
Christ,
answer to the question is that your brand is Christ. Your identity is in Christ.
Is in Christ, yes.
And so this is an outward manifestation. Mm-hmm. And you know what, man? It's also a freedom of speech, too, because there's some countries, if you wore that cross out, that you'd go to jail.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Why would that be? Typically, right now in this culture, in this country, in this culture, the only thing they find offensive is anything to do with Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, if you wore I'll just leave it alone. No matter what you wore, nobody gets offended, or nobody actually says that they're offended by it.
Christians
until you put a cross on, or until you wear a shirt like this, and then you get people that say, "Man, you shouldn't wear that in public."
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't wear your hair like that.
Well, and I also told him.
I mean, come on.
I also told him, like, when I became like an outspoken Christian, like online, that everybody has opinions on how every different Christian has opinions on how I should be, ministering to people, how I should be, walking with God. You should do this. You should do that. You really shouldn't preach that. You really should preach that. I've got everyone from, what are they called? Calvinists to Baptists to Catholic to, people that don't believe Jesus is God. I mean, everybody messaging me. And so I had to make a rule for myself that there's only like 3 to 5 people that I'm going to allow to speak into my life. And if you're not one of those 3 to 5 people, kick rocks. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question, or let me use an example here. You have a relationship with Angela.
Right?
And I have a relationship with Angela.
Yep.
But they are completely different.
Yeah.
Correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I hope so. If not, we're fighting.
A lot of people have a relationship with God that is like my relationship with Angela.
Distant.
Casual, distant, occasionally talk to her, say hi, check on her a little bit here and there. And that's their relationship with God. You have a relationship that is more intimate with her because she is your wife. You
Right.
know more about what she likes and what she wants to eat and what time her bedtime is and all that stuff that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a more intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that people always question your religion without realizing that it's a relationship?
Yeah.
You know, everybody in denominations are talking about the religious aspect of their relationship with Christ according to man-made rules and regulations,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
I was raised that way, but I refuse to be that way. It is about a completely intimate relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
If I am to be his bride, and that's the way we say it, if I am to be his bride and he is to be my bridegroom, then there is going to be an intimate relationship that I know between God and myself, and he knows me from the minute that, well, it says that he knew my inner workings before the creation of the earth.
I also trust Jesus enough to understand that if I'm getting a little sideways on theology and it's to the point where it's dangerous, I know he'll correct me instantly. Like for example, I make jokes about God and stuff like that every now and then. And dude, the feeling I get to where if I start thinking about making a joke about the Holy Spirit, the feeling it's undescribable. Like this pit in my stomach. Like, don't you?
That's called grieving the Holy Spirit, and the Bible literally says,
Yeah,
do
like
not grieve
don't
the Holy
you
Spirit.
like don't you dare because I try to make funny representatives of like God and stuff when we're roofing and stuff, but whenever I do it to the Holy Spirit, I'm like God's like, don't you dare say that joke. Like that's not funny. Don't do it. I'm like, whoa,
That's why he says to keep coarse talk out of your mouth.
Very serious, man. Very serious. So like, I know that God, even if like Pastor Gary wasn't in my life, if you weren't in my life, if people weren't in my life to correct me, I know that God would anyway. Like I know God would not allow me to go down a terrible theology path without.
There's also an obedience to God that in this particular instance, there's several times that you said stuff that I wanted to run it out of my mouth that would have sounded like judgment. It would have sounded like an issue, personal issue, and I kept my mouth shut and let God deal with it.
Yeah.
Because it needs to come from him for you to have a clear understanding of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's this thing too. Like you have too. You've said things that I'm like, is that right? And it's just like we shouldn't really develop that relationship with each other to where we're trying to correct each other all the time and stuff like that. I mean, I think if it's bad, we should. Like if it's something like a salvation issue, we definitely should. Yeah.
If you can come across with love.
Yeah.
And correction in love is what we're told to do biblically.
Jiminy Christmas, Larry. Maybe a lot of these are mine. You have like a million tabs on here that's open.
No, I do not.
Yeah, I'm literally.
No, I close those out once a day.
Are you serious? You close these once a day?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there 40 on here then? Seriously.
Because I didn't do it this morning.
Okay. Good grief. Okay.
I had breakfast with my brother.
Let's move on to pagan question of the week. Coco, do you have that for us?
I do. This one, it actually came in last night from Regina Minister on Instagram. She says, okay, I have a question. Why do bad things happen to good people, and you always see good things happen to people who do not deserve it?
That's it?
There's a shrug emoji, a smiley face, and a thank you.
One of the things that stick out to me and that kind of towards the end of that is I have a question. I wish we could talk to her. So I have a question because she said people who don't deserve it. Who would that be? Does that make sense? Like any bad thing that's ever happened to me, I'm like, I kind of deserve that. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like my existence has.
Okay, let me kind of touch maybe how she meant that.
Maybe
it's a
children.
It's a she. Okay, what about this? Oh, I love it when I go blank. No, Well, like traffickers, they deserve to be punished. Murderers deserve to be punished.
But what about
Right.
the woman that gets maybe abused by her husband and
Yeah.
she's just a sweet, God-fearing woman? Or what about the kid in a cancer ICU or a kid that gets in a car accident? Yeah. And the answer to that is I don't know.
Well, what I find interesting, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying something like this, but I'm going to try it. Okay? Step out in faith, Lord. Oftentimes, we sit here on our human high horse, and judge God for what goes on in this world that man created that causes the problems. How come you don't hear of cancer, okay, in Moses' time? I mean, if cancer's been around all this time, why? To me, I think cancer came from the chemicals that we use on our food. I know now they're saying that there's a lot of food that us Americans eat that other countries won't even let in the country because of the stuff that we put on our food.
Yeah.
But that has side effects.
So basically what you're saying is that
We blame God for a lot of stuff that God doesn't have any
you believe humans created a lot of misfortune. Yeah, like
I do.
I know. Well, and then
and you blame God for your husband being abusive.
Yeah.
No, your husband's just a butthead that's abusive.
So Jesus says in Matthew 5, this isn't an explanation, but this is kind of like Jesus explaining the way it is. It's Matthew 5:45. Let's start with 44. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous.
Mm-hmm.
If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? And so he's saying that, hey, the sun's gonna, the same sun that you love and you appreciate that comes up every day, it rains for the righteous guy and the guy that's unrighteous. And it also rains like bad, it's talking about troubles, essentially. It rains on the just and the unjust. So you're going to get troubles no matter who you are, no matter if you deserve it or not. You're going to get troubles. But that's why it's good to live a Holy Spirit-filled life, because if you'll just listen to God, he'll give you warnings like he gave to Lot's wife. Hey, I want you to escape here, but just don't turn around when you're running out of the city. If you're living that Holy Spirit life, you're going to have, the enemy's going to have less opportunities to hurt you. God's going to help guide you. And if you're in God's will, that's where you want to be. But it doesn't, even if you're in God's will, you're going to deal with issues.
Well, the amazing thing is that, the Lot said, don't turn around. So apparently his daughters didn't turn around. I don't have any clue if there was a noise when she became a pillar of salt, but Lot didn't even turn around and look at her.
Yeah.
Because if he had turned around, the same thing would have happened. So it falls under obedience. But I mean, literally the oldest book in the Bible is Job. And it talks about all the bad things that happened to Job. And he was
great.
Called righteous in God's eyes. And yet, to test his righteousness, God allowed Satan to have certain freedoms with him, within limitations. Did he deserve it? No. But when you handle it the right way, and God knows that you're going to handle it the right way, which is give praise even through the questions. All of us have doubts about why we go through things. But look for the lesson. What am I trying to learn, or what is God trying to teach me through this? Why am I going through this? What am I supposed to learn? Those are the two questions that we need to ask.
Well, I think the lesson's always Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. Yes. So if you're in the will of God, everything that happens to you is for the good. Like God has a good reason for it.
Okay, now I want
you can stop believing that.
Take that in your mindset, and then remember last year.
Yeah. Oh, and I can see why he had it happen, you know? Like, I can see
Yeah, but
why.
you couldn't see that while you were going through it.
No, I was mad.
You sit over here, you got angry, you threw fits, you whined and cried, and all of that.
You see why I don't call him? You see why I don't call him? And he's like, why doesn't he call me? Oscar the Grouch.
I'm not trying to be Oscar the Grouch.
He's in the trash can, but the trash can has a cross on it, so we're all good.
Job 12:13. But true wisdom and power are found in God. Counsel and understanding are his.
Yep. And then there's a promise too, Revelation 21:14. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. God doesn't promise that bad things aren't going to happen to us here. You know what I mean? And things happen like that. There's going to be another one where you're going to see someone and you're going to be like, man, that guy really lived for God. Like, if anything happened to Larry at all right now, that question would pop in my head and be like, God, why would you do that? This guy's out here running the way. But I know if he would, what? I know. I'm saying that if anything happened to you, I would have that question for God.
Why?
I know, and that's what I was fixing to say. And you would tell him like, hey, like this is God's plan or whatever. Like, so
there must be some, look, the refiner's fire isn't one time.
Yeah.
It's a
forever.
continuation of. It continually burns off the impurities.
Yeah.
Until you can see the reflection of the silversmith. And in this case, the silversmith is the Lord.
Yeah. And then for Romans 8:18, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. That's pretty cool. Paul was saying there that, hey, no matter what you're going through right now, it's not even worth comparing to what God's going to have for you someday.
No, but we are creatures of the right now.
Yeah.
We get our food right now.
Exactly.
We get my coffee in 2 minutes in the microwave.
Exactly.
You know, I can get my coffee warmed up 2 minutes.
Would you say all the times that you've been through that refiner fire and you're at an age and a place right now, would you say you're happy about it? You're grateful for it?
No, in the beginning I was not. Absolutely did not understand it in the least bit. Now I welcome it because I know that it's removing another obstacle that I've placed between me and God.
Yeah. And you just want to be closer to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move over. I want to sit down on the armrest of the throne with him.
There you go.
I know that doesn't sound respectful, but he's my father. I want to be that close to him.
Yeah. Oh, this is one that kind of explains to it. Like, there's that saying that the good die young. Why do the good die young?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's an old saying, but here's Isaiah 57:1. The righteous man perishes and no one lays it to heart. Devout men are taken away while no one understands, for the righteous man is taken away from calamity. So that says sometimes that a righteous man is taken to save him from maybe future calamity or future problems. Is that how you take that? Did you read that or did you hear that?
I think that God has his time frame for each and every person. I mean, I can take into consideration, the first time I really thought about this was when Joe Dogma passed away. And he was a good friend of mine here at church, a big old boy, a little bit younger than I am. Well, like actually about 8 years younger than me. But when he passed away of COVID, it was a shock because of his age. He was younger, and he was on fire for the Lord. So to me, all of that was kind of disheartening at first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But since I have had a change of attitude on how I see death, he actually got to graduate early. So I was excited for him. And in that same time, he finally got his, he finally got what he was driving for, which was to be closer to God.
Yeah.
So if the Lord took me now, you may not celebrate. You would be saddened. But in all honesty, I would rather you celebrate. I would rather you see that I have graduated, that I completed my mission, and that the Lord took me.
You know what would, like, people would go back to, you know what? Let's just say this. If something happens and the Lord takes me before I'm 50, I want Isaiah 57:1 put on my gravestone. Because that's what everybody's going to say anyway. Zach was really probably gearing up to do something really stupid right now. And God took him home.
What's that verse?
Y'all are writing it down. I'm going to honor this. Isaiah 57:1.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, it says the righteous man perishes and no one lays it to heart. Devout men are taken away while no one understands, for the righteous man is taken away from calamity. And so how I'm interpreting that verse is God took that man away because he was about to suffer something, and he took him away from it.
Personally, I would like to be like Enoch.
Yeah, me too. I would love it. Yeah.
And then he was not.
But I'm saying,
okay.
But I'm saying if it was me, y'all would go, Zach was probably gearing up to do something dumb, dude. And God had to take him. God had to take him out of this, dude.
At the biggest thing, I truthfully would rather not have a funeral. I plan on being cremated.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't want to see a memorial. I don't see the importance of it personally. My daughters have let me know that that's not going to happen because they want closure.
Can I be honest with you, dude? If I have anything to do with it, I'm going to bury you in the Larry hoodie, dude. And the Zach visor.
First off, as mobile as I am while I'm alive, it would never be able to be put on my body.
We'll figure it out, dude.
And you would the only way you're going to do it is cut the back and put it on that way. Hey,
we'll figure it out, dude.
Yeah, don't cremate me in it. That's too much Larry for anybody. I don't want the Lord going.
St. Peter would turn around and be like, oh, no, he's wearing the Zach visor. No.
Okay. There you go.
He's wearing the Zach visor.
At least that's not the Larry hoodie.
Send him back now.
I think we ought to bury him in the Larry hoodie.
I'll do it. I don't care.
That last thing they see is everybody walks by the open casket is him laying there in the Larry hoodie.
Yeah. Dude, people laugh. I'm all for it. People laughing at my funeral, I'm all for it, dude. That's what I want. I want people laughing. I don't want people crying.
Hey, Angela, I'm holding him to it on this one.
Do we even have the Larry hoodie anymore?
You better.
We do? Okay.
If nothing else, I'll put it up for my wife someday. Might want to wear it.
That's actually, but that's a
gifted to Darcia.
just to cap off that.
I know you love him, honey.
Just to cap off that conversation, though, we really don't have an answer for that. I mean, there's some biblical guidance to it, but we really don't have an answer, a solid answer for it. I mean, I think we did answer it, but at the end of the day, it's an age-old question that we don't understand. We don't fully understand it, and I just feel like I don't need to understand it fully. Like, I told Coco and his son this recently, and I really do believe this, that the hardest part about becoming a Christian or being a Christian is learning how to trust God. That's what the battle is. If being a Christian would be easy if you just trusted God. What I talk about, I'm so tired of. Okay, Zach, take a minute, chill, think about your words, and stop stuttering, because whenever I watch this show again, and I'm stuttering and I want to punch myself in the face because I'm repeating myself.
Well, I was getting ready to throw something at you to get you back on track.
I need to be confident about my words. That's what it is.
Like the old TV, slap the old TV so that
good grief, dude.
Record player.
Whenever I'm rewatching the show, I'm like, Zach, you're a mumbling idiot. Anyway, the hardest part about being a Christian is learning how to trust God. That's just the bottom line. It's the hardest part. If you could just trust God, then being a Christian wouldn't be hard. There's nothing hard about being a Christian. You just trust that God's going to do the best thing for you no matter what, which we all want to believe that. But if we did that, if we trusted God, there's nothing hard about being a Christian. So that's what we need to work towards. We need to work towards trusting God. That's what we need to work towards, because if we can trust God, there's nothing hard about being a Christian. Am I wrong about that? If we fully trust him, it's over, That's it. So that's what that's why I encourage them to, hey, that's what you need to learn to do right now, is just learn how to trust God. No matter what, you stub your toe, you run into a table, you go broke, whatever happens, you got to learn how to trust God, that he has a purpose for it. Okay, Lord, now if something bad's happened, what do you want me to get from this? And the quicker you get it, the faster you're going to be able to move on from it. So
my suggestion to answer that question really would be to read the book of Job.
Yeah.
Read the whole book of Job. Take the time, look at it, study it, and I know that you'll have a better answer than what we've been able to give.
Yeah. Okay, so you're telling the listener that submitted the question to read the book of Job?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea too. Because I remember it was funny. I read that book, 23 Minutes in Hell, and it was a guy's account of hell. God gave him a vision of hell, and I read the book, right? Well, I'm trying to talk, and I've got this going on over here, so this is ridiculous. But anyway, I'm sitting here. I've got my finger in the Bible like this, right? And after I get done reading that book, I'm pointing up to God. I'm saying, why would you even have me born? Why would you even have me born if you had me a chance of sending me to this place? If there was even a chance of sending me here, why would you even have me be born out of my mother? This is ridiculous, And I was like, why would you have that guy born?
And
like,
so your thumb was in Job?
And then I go like this. Not only was it in Job, it was on the first page of the first book of Job.
Wow.
And then as I read that whole book that night, and Job said the same thing. He said,
yes.
Why would you have me even born out of my mother if you were going to put me through these torments? And I was like, I just said that. And that's so cool. That's so cool. That's a testament to your relationship with God, is that he's literally there for you, and he wants you to learn and grow in this. God has he has fun with it. He likes flexing like that. And he's like, you have a question? I'm not only going to answer it, I'm going to answer it right now. And let's pretend that you had something to do with it, Zach. You know what I mean?
Let me read 15, chapter Job 15.
Okay.
Are you sure you're ready for this?
No, but go ahead.
All right. Start in verse 2. A wise man wouldn't answer with such empty talk. You're nothing but a windbag.
Oh. Shoo.
The wise don't engage in empty chatter. What good are such words? Have you no fear of God? No reverence for him? Your sins are telling your mouth what to say. Your words are based on clever deception. Your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips testify against you.
Cheers.
That's like almost a mic drop moment.
Boom. Don't ever call me a windbag again. You understand me?
I just read it.
Don't you ever call me a windbag again.
I thought, wow, what a perfect timing.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're doing. You're like, I'm gonna take this opportunity to call Zach a windbag, dude.
And
okay.
get by with it.
What do you think? What do you think about going to the guest? Are we okay?
Yeah, I think that'd be it's a good point in the show. 10 minutes late. Let's get the guest on.
Oh, are we late?
No.
That's what we've been flagging.
We're 5 minutes early. It said 2:45.
2:45, guys. Oh, we're supposed to go to 2:30.
Oh,
okay.
Hey, was that Eastern Standard Time?
The guest is actually prepped for 2:45, so
I
we're
know.
good.
That's what I told you last week, but you're having me write these out where the guest comes on at 2:30. That's why I was asking you why.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was off. Okay.
You weren't listening again.
No, I wasn't. Sorry. I got a lot of stuff going. Sometimes you got to be like, hey, stupid, call me a windbag. It gets my attention every time. So, okay.
I didn't call you a windbag. I just read the verse.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk to Regina today. Regina is a polytheistic witch. And as always, I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. I'm going to let Regina do it. So let's get to her. Regina.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Hello?
Regina.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Give me just a second here. I'm going to step out real quick.
Her audio sounds so good.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds really good.
All right. We don't have to worry about nothing.
Oh, fantastic. I love that for me.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, go right ahead. I'm just going to go pop out to my car so we can get started whenever you're ready. I just want to give you guys a heads up. If I get nervous, I do have a tendency to stutter. So I apologize in advance for that.
Oh, no. We were just talking about that.
Fit right in.
Yeah, you're going to fit right in. We were just, it's funny. You're just talking about that. Like, I literally just had a stuttering fit and I had to stop and go, Zach, because when I edit the show, or I don't edit anymore, but when I rewatch the show and I listen to myself talk, I'm like, you bumbling idiot. Like, why would anybody want to listen to you?
Okay.
You know, I have so many jump cuts in my TikToks because of that exact issue, right?
We need to start actually editing the show and editing my double talk and my ums, and like, we really need to do
It would only be a 45-minute show then.
I know. We'd cut it out. But okay, let's get right into it. I kind of gave you an intro. See? Don't bring it up. You're going to make me insecure and I'm not going to talk. Okay. All right. So, have you ever listened to any of the shows before?
I have heard the clips of your show on TikTok that you posted. I have not gone specifically to watch any of the episodes yet. I do plan to watch the one for Big Dog and Raven because they are my friends. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I plan to. Well,
they plan on coming to church here. Yeah, we love them. So, they're good friends of ours too. So, good deal. I'm going to explain the show to you. Basically, I'm going to give you an overview of what the show is, and then I'll explain how it goes down, and then that way we'll all know. It's pretty easy. But this is the Help My Unbelief podcast. Okay. Yeah. I feel like God had me create this show specifically for an unbeliever because whenever we started the show, I realized that when I came up with when God gave me the name for the Help My Unbelief podcast, I was like, God, I can't just create any other podcast, like just a Christian podcast. Like, I need something. And I realized that there's really not a podcast out there that is made for people that don't believe in the same thing of us. That's not like some sort of debate platform or something. And so that's what we aim to do. In fact, I'll just read the mission statement to you. Our mission goal statement is, it is to create an environment for an unbeliever to speak or listen comfortably without fear of judgment or ridicule, without allowing the insulting or belittling of God, having the ultimate intent of representing Christ to the unbeliever. And what we mean by unbeliever is anybody that doesn't believe in the same thing that we do. Because it started off with we were just going to interview atheists and agnostics, and then God had other plans. So
he does that.
Yeah, and here we are on episode 68, and we've interviewed Luciferians, witches, all that, and I don't hate to say it that some of you guys are my friends, and it doesn't bother me a bit. So, that's our goal. That's our goal for the show. So basically how the show will go down, I'm going to introduce everybody in the room to you. That way you can get familiar with everyone's voices. And then we'll basically just start the interview. It's basically just a conversation. We want to stay away from debating at all costs. I know that we have different beliefs, and we may run into some things that that we don't agree on. And we can get into a discussion of it if we don't agree a little bit. But when it starts getting debatey, I'll end up ending it, and we'll move on to something else.
That is totally fine.
Okay.
I don't really want to debate with anybody, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's not me either. It's not like me and Coco used to debate, and I'd just be like, this grosses me out. I don't want to do this anymore.
It gets toxic after a while. Yeah.
But anyway, okay, I'm going to, and then towards the end of the show, we're going to interview for like 45 minutes or so. And then towards the end of the show, we do something called the rounds, where everybody in the room will go around and say something to you in closing. And then because you're our guest, you're going to get the final goodbye of the conversation and final statement, I guess you can say. And then that's it. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off.
Perfect.
Okay. We got Coco in studio today.
Hi, Regina.
Hey, Coco. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
My lovely wife, Angela.
Hello.
Hi, Angela.
My bright, intelligent, and windbag of a co-host, Larry.
How are you doing,
Hi, Larry.
Regina?
He just called me. He read a Bible verse before you came on and basically called me a windbag through it. So I wanted to throw that insult back at him for that. So there you go.
It was already
love
it
it.
was already written, and it was already read, and it all falls on him, and that's not my problem.
That's okay. You just turn right back around, Zach, and you say, you know what? 2 Kings 2:3. Yes, I know. Shut up.
Okay, and then
Hold on. 2 Kings what?
2:3, I believe.
All right,
I'm
You're gonna check
Zach.
me?
I'll look it up.
I'm the host, and I'm the one that everyone confuses why I'm the host of this podcast. Everyone's like, "Why is this guy here?" But anyway, all right. So I read Jess's thing a little bit. Hold on, I'm going to read this real quick. I'm going to make sure.
Yeah,
Hold on.
of course.
The company of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elisha replied, "so be quiet." Oh, wow.
You see, I know my Bible.
Yeah. Basically saying, yeah, I'm going to take your mask from you. Just be quiet. Okay.
Yep.
But so you are a polytheistic witch, right? And so we've interviewed many witches before. You believe in, do you believe in all, oh, wait, omnitheist is a person that believes in all gods. Do you believe in all gods?
Okay. I'm going to be real with you. No, I don't believe in all of the gods. And the reason I say that is because there are some religions that I do believe worship a deity that is not actually a deity. It kind of falls into something that's called UPG. I think you guys have discussed this on your podcast before, which is unverified personal gnosis. I believe that there's tiers to the level of spiritual realms, and sometimes there are creatures that come along into the world that are called egregores. And those are things that are kind of created by the collective consciousness of human beings all agreeing on what this creature is. And so, no, I don't believe every god exists, but I do believe that a lot of them do and have had conversations with many of them.
Okay. And so what's your take on the Christian God?
So I guess it really depends on what you mean by the Christian God, because if I were to walk into any random church today, and I mean, we're just going to say your standard American church, you know, with the coffee house in the front and the custom greeters, you know the one I'm talking about. I'm not going to say that every single one of them has what I would consider an actual God in there, because I do believe that a lot of them are worshiping something that's called an egregore. And I don't believe that that is necessarily a real creature, like a real deity. But if you're asking if I believe in the Canaanite deity El Shaddai, who had a son named Yeshua who came to earth, yes, I do believe in him, and he is one of my gods.
Okay. Egregore? She's asking how you spell that.
Okay, I'm a terrible speller. It's EGER. Oh God, EGERO. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on a Christian podcast. I'm sorry.
We'll bleep it out.
I am so sorry. I am a very terrible speller. Hold on. It is EGREORE. There we go. Sorry, I'm just slightly dyslexic. I'm sorry.
No one's worse than my wife at dyslexia, so don't worry.
And again, I apologize for swearing. I swear I wasn't going to do that.
So you believe, you say he's one of your gods. Like, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so I have other deities that I worship. Not just El Shaddai and Yeshua, but I also have other gods that I honor, including Aphrodite and the ancient Egyptian god Set of chaos. So I have other deities that I worship as well.
Okay. What do you?
I have a quick question for you.
Sure, of course.
Are all the deities that you worship, are any of them jealous?
Okay, I guess it depends on what you mean by jealous, because there are deities that I worship that don't necessarily get along with each other. because of, or at least the creatures that I honor, not all of them are necessarily gods, but some of them don't get along with each other. And so if I'm paying more attention to one of them over another and not, spending equal time with them, then yeah, there may be a little bit of jealousy from time to time, but that's more of a reflection on me not giving that deity the proper time and space that we've agreed upon in advance.
What do you make of Isaiah 46:9?
Could you read that one to me? I don't have that one memorized off the top of my head.
It says, "Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come." And in other translations, it says that there is none before me, and there will be none after. Like he's claiming in the Bible that he's the only God.
Sure. I don't believe it. And I think that here is the problem. This gets into a lot of the content that I make onto TikTok. One of the things that I was raised with is the concept of inerrancy of the Bible. And that basically means that every word written down in the Bible is 100% true, 100% factual. There is no deviating from the written word of God. And the problem with that in and of itself is that very concept of inerrancy didn't exist until 1976 at all. And it's a purely Western thought process. Now, when you look at something like that and you're saying, okay, if only the Americans are believing in something like this, the inerrancy of the Bible, we also have currently at this time 3,030 different translations of the Bible just alone. And they vary so widely and vastly between them. I think in English, I would have to double check my statistic on the English ones, but there's several hundreds in English alone, and none of them are identical. So already inerrancy. Well, if I say, which version of the Bible are we talking about? How do I know? And everybody says, oh, well, it's the same across the board. It isn't. It really isn't. They have wildly, vastly different things. Some have missing verses. Some don't. It all just depends on which one you're talking about. And I think if we were to take the Bible at face value, right, and say everything in the Bible is 100% true, 100% factual, we have to abide by everything that's in the Bible. Well, then I'm already not. I would be a terrible Christian anyway if I was, because I don't own slaves. I didn't marry the person who assaulted me. There's a lot of things that go into the Bible that you can't say you follow it 100% of the time, because I still eat shrimp. I have tattoos. I have piercings. And if everybody says, oh, well, Jesus came along and removed all of those rules, and, now we don't have to live that way, that's great, but that still means that you're negating half of the book itself, and you're saying this no longer matters. So I don't know. I think for me, I don't take the Bible as the guidebook to run my life, because I feel like in a way that takes the deity that inspired it and basically makes him into an idol, and it confines him to the writings upon those page. And the one thing he said he didn't want was for him to be idolicized. And I feel that in a way the Bible itself has become an idol in a lot of Christian circles.
I agree with that we should not make the Bible the center of our lives, that we should make Jesus the center of our lives. I for sure agree with that. And some people do idolize the Bible, the people that call themselves the scholars of the Bible, and this is what I've studied and this is what I know, they make that. And I would wonder if that person even has a relationship with Christ at all. One that praise and stuff like that, because the Bible isn't my stomping grounds. That's not really special. My special place is my actual personal relationship with Jesus. That's what I specialize in. I know what Jesus has me do, and now I've learned about him, and I've learned his characteristics and his ways from the Bible. And so the reason why, and Jesus didn't come to do away with the law, by the way. He didn't, like a lot of Christians will say that Jesus came but Jesus said himself that he didn't come to abolish the law. He came to fulfill it. You know what I mean? So
I do. It's a comment. So the problem I have, I was actually raised Christian in a Southern Baptist church. And my hyperfixation from the time I was 15 until I was almost 24 was the Bible. I knew just about everything. I had it memorized front to back. My speciality was debating atheists.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more. So Southern Baptist, same, by the way.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I can still smell it. I can still smell it. But tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about your upbringing in religion. Was it good? Was it bad? Do you have trauma there?
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to. Is there any kind of like trigger warnings I should put out there for your podcast? Because my story does come with a lot of trauma. I'm not going to lie to you.
No. We have heard it all. Trust me. I've heard some bad.
We would just rather you not curse.
Yeah. Just.
Okay.
Hey, here's our rules. Don't cast any spells. We had a guy light a spell and do a prayer to Lucifer. We don't want that on the show. We don't pray on the show, so we don't want that. We don't want you to curse. And then other than that, if you tell me a really sad story, I'll probably cry. I usually do. So I'm going to just try not to cry.
We're just trying to keep our family rating.
Yeah, we have an E for everyone rating, and I'm going to be honest with you. I've had to bleep a few things out that I've said. So
yeah.
So don't feel bad.
And my granddaughter listens.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I will try to treat this like I'm having a conversation with my grandparents as respectfully as I possibly can.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a quick question before you get started. How old are you? Of course.
Oh, I'm 34.
Okay. That kind
I'm going to be 35 in July.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. I'm an adult. not at all. Like let me be clear. I'm never growing up.
I'm 61. Age does not make you an adult.
He still wears visors.
Yeah. Well, I'm not always going to wear visors.
I was going to say, Larry, I've seen your picture. You don't look 61. At least from what I've seen on TikTok. So well done.
Well, I don't think they filter anything.
I don't think so, but you're looking good.
Hey, Larry.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do?
No, I'm
you
kidding.
Filter,
no.
You soften me a little bit?
No,
darken my hair?
I'm just kidding. No.
Larry has a stand-in. They have a stunt double for you.
He's got a nice voice, but the face.
There have been a few. Yes, there you go. There have been a few times Zach wished there was a stunt double in here for me.
No, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love my guy. That's my guy. All right, so you have some trauma in there. Yeah. I mean, I'll buckle up. What do we got?
Okay, so we'll start. I'm pretty good at telling a story. If I go on too long, just cut me off. I was raised by parents who escaped fundamental Baptist church, but the problem is they never fully deconstructed from their fundamental Baptist beliefs. There were certain things they kind of understood were not reality, like women only had to wear dresses and drums were illegal or whatever. My father was a guitar player, and in his church, he wasn't even allowed to play an acoustic guitar until he was almost in high school. And even then, they had to beg, borrow, and plead to get him to play in church. So my parents, when they got married and decided to sit down and agree upon what they believed and what they didn't fully deconstruct from the fundamental Baptist beliefs. And so a lot of those old things kind of stuck around. So I always like to say I'm one generation removed from the fundy beliefs, and my cousins were raised fundamental Baptist. If you saw the documentary Shiny Happy People, that was a reality for my cousins. Not for me, but for my cousins. I literally saw them raised in a god-awful toxic environment, and I see quite clearly how that affected them. And even when I was a Christian, I knew how they were being taught was wrong, and I knew that that was not what God had intended for people. So when I was a kid, when I was a baby, my parents found a church, and the first day they walked into this church, there was a pastor who came in, and my parents loved him so much. They said, if this church hires this pastor, because this was this pastor's first day preaching, they said, we're going to stay here. Well, they did hire that pastor, and my parents stayed there. And I grew up in that church. We attended that church my entire life until I was about 19 years old. We attended that church. My father was part of the music band. My mother was in the choir. They would often work it. I also was a part of a lot of the church services, including working the sound booth. I was in several of the plays. I was deeply involved. I also created several pieces. I'm an artist, but I created several pieces of art for my church that I gave to them. So I was deeply involved in the church. And I will tell you that there was nothing like my love for what I determined to be God at that time. When I was a little kid, I will tell you, I know that El Shaddai is real. I absolutely knew he was real, because when I was a kid and I first heard that story about Solomon praying to God and asking for wisdom, and God gave it to him, I said, I want that. I want wisdom from God. So I made the same prayer, and I heard him answer me. And he said, I'm going to give it to you, but you have to understand this isn't going to be an easy path for you. I was like 6 or 7, having that conversation with a God at that moment in my life. I knew he was real. I knew he existed, and I never lost that.
Yeah.
But
I've been talking to God since I was a little kid too, so I identify with that. It's really cool. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's not. Oh no, you're totally fine. As I started to grow up, I was different from other people, because the biggest problem that I had was, and I didn't understand this was my problem, I was bisexual, and I didn't know. I didn't understand the feelings I was feeling. I didn't understand why I was the way that I was. And when I got into high school, I was very adamantly, like staunchly believing that God had said that homosexuality was a sin, and I was against it. I was absolutely against it. Unfortunately for me, there was a person in my life who was an adult, who was also a woman, who began grooming and molesting me. She was a very close friend of mine. I never would have expected this to happen, and it didn't happen overnight. It didn't just wasn't like a slam bam, thank you ma'am, all of a sudden we were in this thing. It just kind of slowly happened, and then the next thing I knew, I was in a dark ass place.
Who was it again? Who was it?
She was my best friend. When I met her, I was 14 and she was 17. And by the time we were in this the only way I can think to describe it is an abusive relationship. By the time we were in this abusive relationship, she was 18 and I was 15. She was I don't want to say her name out loud. But I can tell you that I know for a fact she was possessed by a demon. And I knew the demon's name. And I don't speak his name either. I refuse to say either of their names because I feel that will call their energy to me, and I don't want them near me. But for 2 years, under my parents' nose, I spent all my time with this girl, and she was constantly abusing me to the point where I was not allowed to sleep. I was not allowed to eat. I had to do everything she said. If I didn't, she threatened to kill us both a lot of the time. And it was a very scary situation to be at 15. Then as time went on, she began to brainwash me into believing that we were the two prophets from Revelations. And eventually what was going to happen is I was going to be gang assaulted and conceive the Antichrist.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
You're good. Just take a breath. Take a breath.
When I went and told my parents, I told my dad first because I was scared of women. And my dad grabbed my mom. I was at church when it happened. I finally had my breakdown. And the reason I did is because there was a man who came in to talk to the church and the main congregation about pornography addiction. But something he said during that service scared the hell out of me, which was, people like this, when you have an addiction that is sexual, it doesn't go away if you feed it. And I realized that I had been allowing her, which in my 15-year-old brain, obviously as an adult, I know this, I had no choice in this matter.
Yeah.
But I had been in my brain allowing her to do whatever she wanted to me because I kept thinking it would just make things go away.
Yeah.
I went to my parents for help. Sorry, this is the part that hurts. At the time, my parents were actively trying to adopt children from another country. We used to be missionaries, and we went to Ukraine, and we met 3 orphans, and my parents were currently trying to adopt them. When I told them what was happening with my abuser, my parents told me that they were not going to be able to file a police report because if they did, it would jeopardize the adoption. And I was asked to stay silent so that they could adopt these kids. When that happened, I was scared and I wanted to just have someone to care about me, someone to be on my side. And so I said, okay. When we got the kids adopted and everybody was safe, my parents took me to one 30-minute session of therapy at the church. After speaking to this therapist for 30 minutes, she kicked me out of the office, talked to my parents for 15, and they pulled me back in for the final 10 minutes and told me there was nothing wrong with me. I was fine. It turned out years later that I was actually at the beginning stages of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I had severe depression and anxiety, and I was not well. But because they just didn't want to pay for therapy and wanted everything to look fine and like they had done their due diligence, they convinced the therapist to give me a clean bill of health. So
what is wrong
years,
with people, man? Like, that's just like,
and it was,
man,
and it being your parents. It's your parents. These are the people who are supposed to protect you, who are supposed to have your back.
They didn't need to be adopting another kid if they couldn't handle the challenges of the one they had. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I agree with you.
Like that's
with
where, you know, if one of my daughters comes to me and tells me something like that, then the adoption can wait. We need to, if they won't allow us to have adoption because something like this is going on, then we've got something we've got to figure out. And I've noticed that in Christianity right now. Like, it's still a big problem right now. I've noticed that. Thank God not in my church. But like, it's just lack of leadership, lack of godly leadership. It's almost like that sounds like a coward to me. And I'm sorry if you love your parents, and hopefully you've forgiven them. But that just sounds very, very cowardly to me. Like they were scared, you know?
So here, my opinion on it is this, and this is going to come across very cold and callous. I will always love my parents.
Yeah.
But I did not forgive them for this. That is not something I can ever forgive. I have 2 daughters of my own now. They are 9 years old. And I know I would burn the world to the ground for those 2.
You have twins?
I have twins, yeah.
Oh.
I have twins and then one son who is a year and a half. So, yeah.
My hat's off to you. That takes a lot of mercy right there.
His visor's off too. Man, that's just
what I will say. What I did though.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It is good to know. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to talk over you. I know that there is a certain level, and this is not all Christians, but there is a certain level of narcissism that is involved with a lot of Christianity. It is very much I am better than you. And I know that is not every Christian. I will flat out say that. I have got a very good friend named Celtic Bishop on TikTok who I adore. And he and I have had many wonderful conversations. And I know that not every Christian is this way. But I will tell you, from the way that I was raised, I am acutely aware that narcissism is a very strong, prevalent problem within the Western Christian church. And the inerrancy of the Bible is a huge chunk of that. One thing I will say, I give my dad credit for, the smartest thing my dad ever taught me was to question everything. He thought that he was making me smart, and he did. He absolutely did make me smart. But what he didn't expect was for me to start questioning him, for me to start questioning the church. Because when I started looking at this whole situation, all the trauma that I was going through, and I started opening my eyes to other things that were out here, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't start walking away from being a Christian until about 2 years ago.
Wow.
I have only been a non-Christian for about 2 years.
Can I tell something that I've realized about you, and I can identify with what you're going through, and I didn't know it was going to be this soon that I was going to talk about it. And I'm not going to talk about it all the way.
No, please. I'd love to hear it.
Are you still, you're still bisexual, you said?
Yes, I am. But I I didn't wind up marrying a woman. I don't think I can ever have a relationship with a woman at this time.
Because of that? Because of what happened?
Because of,
yes. Yeah, of course not. That's crazy. Whatever happened to that girl?
I don't know. I can tell you there was a very real conversation that happened with Lucifer. I resisted speaking with demons for a long time because of the trauma that I had with that girl and the creature that was in her.
Mm-hmm.
I was encouraged by a couple of witch friends to reach out to Lucifer and speak with him, and one of them helped me. When I spoke with Lucifer, I don't think he is the same creature that you guys think he is in the Bible. And we could get that's a whole other story that we could go into at another time if you ever felt like having the conversation about Satan in general. But when I spoke to Lucifer, the actual Lucifer, he knew, when I told him who the demon was, he knew who he was. And he promised me that I would never have to deal with that creature again. Now, even though I know that he's done something to that creature and I will never see it again, I still won't say its name. But he stood up for me and held space for me when no one else would.
So here's what I'll say. It's great that you've had a conversation with Lucifer because it's going to make this not as weird
okay.
for you. So you've had a relationship with God your whole life then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe there's only one God, but for the sake of just entertaining and respecting you of what you're saying, I'll say the Christian God, if that's okay, or
okay,
El Shaddai.
Fair enough.
But I've had a relationship with God my entire life, the Christian God my entire life, since I was a little kid, just like you. I've talked with him. I've gotten to know him really well. And I'll say this, like, I have some abnormal sexual desires that I deal with.
Okay.
And I've dealt with those since I was a little kid, right? And I use the word abnormal is because it's not normal to what you'd hear like a normal Christian man saying he would walk around with. I'm not going to get into what it is. I'm not going to do it. I've told my wife.
That's fine.
But I want to explain to you, it's a long story. Whenever I entertain those abnormal sexual desires, when I entertain those, it pulls me away from a relationship with God. And it's something that we entertain, that we call in Christianity is called, we open a door or we create a place to where Satan can have a foothold in our life. Right. And whenever I was doing this last year, God started creating some visions and some dreams for me that warned me. And they were just apparent that he was warning me. And he actually warned me that Lucifer was coming to pay me a visit.
Oh, really?
And he did. Okay. And I'm going to stop kind of going into details there, but I'll tell you this one thing I learned about Satan when he got here was some true things that I learned about him was that he made me an offer, and through that offer, I realized that Satan does not know me the way that God knows me. It was very sloppy. It was very, it wasn't very educated. I could tell that he hadn't known me my whole life. Does that make sense? Like
it does.
Like God has known me my whole life. When God made something happen, like you'd have to go back and listen to every episode. I can't tell you every story, but I've had many visions that have taken over the course of dreams that have taken years for him to reveal to me, that have taken years for him to, like, he placed a golf ball in my life for him to show me that he capped off this dream that he showed me. And it just showed me that God had been working to have this relationship with me and to show me a revelation for over years. And like he spent years to reveal that one little thing, and everything that God showed me was just so special, and it showed that he knew me intimately. You know what I mean? But then when Satan came along, it was clear that he didn't know me. I was like, man, if you knew me a little better, you'd know that offer you threw me wasn't that great. You know what I mean? Like it was just, I do. It was sloppy. If that makes sense. And so that's my with saying all that. And I'm very uncomfortable right now. I didn't think I was going to have to talk about this today, but I feel like I have to because this is coming up. So what would you say about that? Do you think God knows you better than Satan does?
I'll tell you this. I don't work with Lucifer. He is not one of my deities that I worship.
Okay.
And that I think that is purely because of my past and knowing that I struggle with demons. I don't do well with them. And I think that there is a very real part of me that has a respect for him for what he did. But it's kind of like, to give you an example, I work mostly with angels. I am very close with angels. And I think a lot of that is because I won't work well with demons, and I think because of my influence with angels and because of how they've influenced me, I can totally understand why when a creature that approaches you and claims to be Satan doesn't understand you, I understand that. I cannot say who it was or what it was, and I believe you when you say that it was Satan. Satan literally in Hebrew means enemy, and I do believe it was an enemy. I fully believe that. It was an enemy to you, and I do believe that your God warned you that an enemy was coming. I believe everything you said. When it comes to the deities that are in my life, El Shaddai and Yeshua have been with me my entire life, but so has Anubis. Anubis has been with me since I was in second grade. He came into my life, and I didn't recognize that it was him until I was 32. But he had been there with me the entire time. I just felt like he was not a guardian angel per se, but just a creature that protected me. I didn't recognize that it was him until I was an adult. And that's when I got informed by 3 other people that it was him that entire time. But then I started speaking with him, and now he is a protector of my children as well as of me. And I will say that, of all of the deities that I work with, even though Yeshua and El Shaddai have been with me since the beginning, I am not the same person that I was when I was a child. I have changed so much, especially in the last 7 years, that I'm virtually unrecognizable in many aspects. I wasn't a witch, when I was in high school. I didn't become a witch until, I want to say 2017. It would have been 2017 when I became a witch. And it wasn't overnight either. Everything happened very slowly. It wasn't like an on-off switch. It was kind of a gradient. I think that in your situation, it is very possible that whatever that Satan was that approached you didn't know you and made a weak offer thinking it was going to win. But the relationships that you develop with whatever deity it is are going to stand the test of time, because those are the creatures, those are the beings that genuinely have your best interest at heart, whether it is El Shaddai or it is Lucifer, who has your best interest at heart. Not everyone is for everyone.
Are you familiar with the parable of the sower?
I think I am. You have to clarify which one it is. Is that the one where he has to separate the wheat from the chaff or something like that? I don't remember. I'm trying to think.
No, that's the one where he sows the seed and it lands on different.
Can I read it? Can I read it and then we'll discuss it?
Please. Because
I wanna give you. This isn't me trying to convince you. It's just what I felt was happening at the time. So
sure.
In our religion, this is kind of Jesus discuss, or you when you refer to El Shaddai and Yeshua, I'm assuming you're talking about Jesus, what we call Jesus, right?
So, yeah, Yeshua is Jesus' Hebrew name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was.
Refer to him as. When people say Jesus, a lot of them think of like the white guy, and that's not what he looks like. So I call him Yeshua because that was his name.
Gotcha. Okay.
I never understood how he could be white since he was Jewish.
I know.
Yeah. Everyone says he has a big nose too, and I'm like, me and my boy Jesus got big noses, so we're good.
He does. There is this. If you type into Google, if you ever have the chance, you can type into the real face of Jesus, and there's this one that has the goofiest freaking expression. That's what he looks like.
Okay, here's the parable. So I'm going to read it real quick. This is Jesus. This is Jesus talking. A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they were withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seeds fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 160 or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear. Okay, so I think do you understand what that parable means, what Jesus is trying to tell people?
Yes, I think if you want my interpretation of that parable,
Please,
my understanding is, I don't think a lot of people, I think, put the responsibility on the seeds in that perspective. And I think that was the way I was raised, was that, if you're a good seed, you'll land in good soil and you'll grow up big and strong and do well. But then when, you land in bad places and you just don't produce as well. I have always put the responsibility on the person who is sowing the seeds. That is the person who controlled where everything went. I feel that when Jesus is telling us a story, he is more so pointing out, if you invest in the right places, then you will see a good yield. Does that make sense?
Which that would mean the responsibility is on the soil, not the person sowing the seed, because really at the end of the day, the person's just throwing a seed on the ground, right?
Right,
but we got to be on good soil.
If you're a smart farmer, where are you going to throw your seed?
That's true. You got to throw them on good soil. But
exactly.
So at the end of the day, like the way I look at that is whenever that experience happened to me, I looked at that experience as something that was coming to derail my purpose with God. One thing's been clear for sure, that whenever I'm in my walk, hold on a second, guys.
No, you're fine.
Come on, man. Whenever I'm in my walk with God, something wants to uproot me from it. That's what has convinced me the most, that Christianity is the truth. Me personally, that's what's convinced me the most, is that whenever I go all in to Christianity, something tries to uproot me. And nothing's more ominous and clear to me that it's the truth when that happens. I'm like, man, like something really doesn't want me to be a Christian. Something really doesn't want me to continue on in this purpose. And so when that happened, I go back to this in my head saying, okay, Satan's coming to derail me from my purpose. And I just always thought that if he was going to come and offer me something, it'd have been like, come on, bro, it'd been a little better. Because when God offers things, it's big. And I really do believe that you had that relationship with him. And let me ask you another question. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give you my point of view on that. So
of course.
Jesus says that we should become like those little children, right? Or we'll never enter the kingdom of heaven, but you said that, you're nothing like you were when you were a child. And I've been thinking a lot when I used to pray to God whenever I was a kid, and I was so innocent and humble when I was a kid. Like I remembered this last week, a few things I used to pray. And I used to pray that I would die before everyone in my family because I didn't want to know what it was like to lose them. And there's no way in hell I'd pray for that now. You know what I mean? Like, because I cherish my own life so much now that I would never pray to die first. Like, I'm going to die last. I'll bury y'all son of a guns with your best, But like when I used to genuinely every night before I went to bed, I prayed that I would die before my whole family because I didn't want to know what it was like to lose them. Like when I look at that kid, I'm like, I want to be like that kid again. You know what I mean? Like I want to be like him. I don't want to be like me right now. And then also another thing I used to pray was, okay, did I lose it? Did I lose it? Oh, so before I go to baseball games and stuff, I used to ask for God's will to be done in that game. I didn't ask to win or to hit a home run or to impress my favorite girl there. Yeah. I asked for his will to be done no matter what. And sometimes I'm like, God, give me $1 million now, and like, God, make this situation happen. And I do pray for God's will to be done a lot in my life, but not like that, And so I tend to find myself wanting to go backwards in faith. Does that make sense? Do you not find yourself wanting to go back to that faith like you had when you were a child?
I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, my relationship with Yeshua has not changed that much. When I say I'm not the same person as I was when I was younger, I'm not as judgmental. I'm not as closed-minded. I am not as rigid. I have become far more flexible because when I was a child, I blindly believed everything that I was told and accepted everything at face value without doing my own research and trying to develop and further a relationship with the person who was behind the pages. And as a child, the smartest prayer I ever made was for wisdom. I remember that prayer and I remember the conversation that I had. And I know that Yeshua has been there for me for years and years, and he has never gone away. I think that in looking at who I am now, I think I am a better person than I was back then. I think I am closer to God not being a Christian than I ever was being a Christian. When I say that I'm not a Christian, what I mean is I don't mean that I don't believe in Yeshua and I don't believe in El Shaddai, because that's not true. I do believe in them. I've seen them. I've spoken with them. I've heard their voices. I've seen their faces. What I can tell you is that being a person who is not a Christian is an awful lot like the Johnny Cash song Man in Black. They ask Johnny Cash why he always wears black, and he says, I'm going to wear black until people stop being ugly to each other. I won't be a Christian until Christians start acting like they're supposed to and start doing what Jesus actually commanded them to do.
Yeah. I don't think you should put that onus on them though, because they're not going to get any better. Christians aren't going to get better. I think.
And Johnny Cash never stopped wearing black.
I think I have a hope that I hope I can help educate Christians on how we should treat unbelievers. That's one of my goals. My first goal for this show is to make it an environment that's suitable for you to come on and be able to tell a Christian your story. And I don't take that lightly. The fact that you told me that, that means so much to me that you would tell me that. And I appreciate that. And I internalize that. And I hurt for you. If I was there, I promise you would have had a different experience than what you had. I give you my word on that, but we can't go back.
No. And I will tell you that I know that God is not responsible for the failings of men. I know this. And I would never hold him to that standard, because that's a little bit like swearing off all men because one man broke your heart. That's not realistic, and not everybody is the same. But I also know that if I'm going to go back to church, if I ever go back into those buildings or I start identifying as Christians, then I have to be around the people who were the problem. And I think that's a little bit like asking a lamb that's already had both of its legs cut off to jump over the fence with a bunch of dogs.
Can I say this, though? And I can't wait. I've already told Coco about this idea for churches. I'm not going to say it right now, but maybe I'll tell you in private. But I have an idea to kind of help hold churches accountable in the future. And you know, it's going to be a while before we get there, but it's going to be great because I love church now. I used to hate church too. I grew up Southern Baptist just like you, and I watched this guy. I remember. I'll tell you this story. I haven't told this story on the podcast yet, but I remember we were. I was in something called Bible drill when I was a kid, and yeah, you remember Bible drill?
I do.
Yeah. And so this guy was one of the dads, and he was one of like the chaperones to Bible drill or whatever. And it was basically Bible drills where you see how fast you can find the Bible verse. You memorize all of them back and forth. And then if you,
I was very good at it.
Yeah, I was very good at it too. And then if you went far enough, you'd make it to Oklahoma City to like the state finals or whatever. And we would go, you know, we made it every year or whatever. In this massive like Baptist church that had basketball courts in it and stuff. But I remember this one guy was like, he was like, hey, everybody like fall in line or whatever. And then we all started falling, but we were kind of just still laughing and stuff like that. And this guy was like smiling and stuff. The chaperone was smiling. And then we got in the elevator door, and those elevator doors shut. And as soon as they shut, he like choked this kid and like picked him up and slammed him up against the side of the wall. And the kid was going, like struggling for air. And he was like, if you ever disobey me. And I was like, whoa, like,
yeah,
I never saw stuff like that in public schools and stuff. So I blame church for that. I blame that feeling that a guy was like, well, this guy's supposed to be a Christian and he's acting like this behind closed doors or whatever. Like, what would his parents say? Like, dude ever grabs my son like that? Like, we fight.
Yeah, they're going to have to dig him up. Yeah.
I don't care where we're at. But anyway, but you know, like the feeling I get here at this church now, and it took me years to get there. I'm 38 now. I'm a little bit older than you, but we're around the same age.
Yeah.
But it took me finding that church. Like, I don't get any of the same feelings that I got there here. None, because I feel like this is a Holy Spirit led church. And I think Jesus warned us about churches not doing the right things. And I talk about this a lot. So if you're a frequent listener, I'm sorry. But the seven churches to the seven letters, or the seven letters to the seven churches in the book of Revelation, in the very beginning of the book of Revelation, if you read it, Jesus instructed churches on how they were supposed to act. And there's very few churches that he had nothing bad to say. Well, one church that he had nothing bad to say about. And so I think the onus is on us to find that Holy Spirit led church, to go and find it and be in there. I got a couple questions because we're kind of running behind, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. I got a couple more questions before we go to the rounds. So because I feel really connected with you because I feel like we had a similar walk with God. Did you pray for wisdom because you read it in James 1:5?
It wasn't in James 1:5. It was the story of Solomon when he was. I don't remember exactly where it's at. I think it's in. Oh boy, I want to say it's in 2 Kings. But Solomon, when David dies, finds out that he's going to become the king, and he's alone in his room. And God approaches him and says, okay, you ask for anything you want and I'll give it to you, anything. And Solomon goes, anything? Okay, I want wisdom. And God says, wait a minute, you want wisdom? And he goes, yeah, I need the strength to lead my people. And God says, okay, I'm going to give you the wisdom. But just because you asked for that, I'm going to give you everything else you didn't ask for. I'm going to give you all the women, all the money, all the success. You're getting all that right along with your wisdom, because he was so impressed with him. And I'm like, you know what? I do want wisdom. I don't necessarily need money, and I didn't need women, but or men. I wanted the courage to lead people in a way that would be appropriate and to gain experience. What nobody tells you about wisdom, though, is you don't get wisdom from a book. You get it from experience. I don't think I knew what I was asking for.
I didn't either.
When I asked for it.
I didn't either. That's why I'm discipling a young man right now, and he asked me, I told him, do not pray for wisdom. You don't know what you're getting, because James 1:5 says, instructs believers to ask for wisdom, to pray for it. God is generous to provide, and he wants his children to know and enjoys the wisdom that comes from him. So basically, like, I knew I was learning about the promises of God and how God can't lie and go back on his promises or anything. And God promises that he'll give wisdom out generously. So I was like, guess what, God? I'm praying for wisdom and you got to give it to me. And God's like, okay, dummy.
Yep, they never tell you. Nobody ever tells. It's that whitewashed version of the Bible where instead of telling you, that David cut off Goliath's head at the end of the story, it wasn't just a cute little shot him with a slingshot. He cut off his head. We're also skipping over the fact that the only way to get to wisdom is to have a crap ton of life experience.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now my last question before we do the rounds is,
sure,
what if this is all, and I know it'd be hard to admit, and I know you're not going, I know you're not going to say it, but what if this is all a ruse to get you off of, what if God has a purpose for you and every other spirit that you're dealing with is designed to derail you from your purpose that's given to you from El Shaddai and Jesus? What if that's true? What would you do? What would you have to say about that?
Being a person who used to be a Christian, there isn't a day goes by that fear doesn't linger in the back of my mind. Just like being a Christian, there wasn't a day that lingered in the back of my mind that I wasn't afraid that I was going to have my Matthew 7:21 through 23 moment when I got to heaven. What if I'm not good enough? Here's what I will say to that. If El Shaddai is the only God and there is no other God out there in this world, then him introducing me to all of these spirits has a purpose. And I can trust in that purpose that when his timing is correct, then I will be shown whatever the truth is. However, I don't believe that that's the case, but I am also not above admitting when I'm wrong. And if it turns out one day that I am wrong, I will admit it with no qualms whatsoever. I am not above being wrong. I am only above being led down the wrong path.
So if God came to you today and said that, hey, Regina, all these spirits, they're deceiving spirits, and they're all deceiving you, stuff like that, I want you to submit your life to me, you would do it?
If I had, okay, so let me be clear on this. If any spirit just showed up and said that, I don't know that I believe him. If it was El Shaddai as I know him and he turned to me and said, I want to be your only God. I want us to be in a monogamous relationship, Regina. Please get rid of all of these other fools. He was here first. And the way that I interpreted the Bible is, you shall have no other gods before me. That means to me, in my mind, that if El Shaddai came to me and said to me, I'm laying claim to you, you are to be no one else's but mine, I would obey him because he is my God and he was my first God. And he has that. I don't know if you're familiar with polyamorous relationships, but there is always in some relationships, they have like a primary relationship, and that person gets to veto who gets to be in the relationship or not. I would say that he would be the one who could say something like that. However, flip-wise, I think that if any of my other deities approached me and told me that exact same thing, I would give them the boot. The only one who gets a pass on that is El Shaddai or Yeshua. But it wouldn't be an overnight change. I will tell you that.
Yeah, it'd be hard. Okay, fair enough. That's all I got. Okay, we're gonna do the rounds. I'm gonna go ahead and do mine first, just to get mine out of the way.
Sure.
I didn't write any notes, and so I've got it fresh on my head. So I ask every person that speaks to other spirits besides God and Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. I ask every person that comes on the show to implement this, and I've never had anybody come back. I had actually one Christian witch told me she implemented it and told me that the spirit told her that she doesn't, these spirits don't like to be asked this. So there's a Bible verse, 1 John 4. Okay. It says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. But this you know, the Spirit of God, every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God." So this is a way in our belief system that we can test spirits. Any spirits that we deal with, we can ask them who Jesus is or where he's from. And if they don't answer the question or they answer anything other than what you just heard in that Bible verse, they're not from God. And so if you could do that when you're interacting with spirits in the future, just because I want to see what happens.
Well, actually, just so you know, testing the spirits is a huge part of my practice. I don't trust any spirit that approaches me in my life at face value. Everything happens very slowly. And I want you to know that I do test them, maybe not necessarily by asking them that specific question. Some of them have been asked that, especially when working with angels and demons. But other spirits, I ask them if they are familiar with the deities that I work with, and I make them say their names. When names have power, and that's truth even in the Bible, that names hold power. And if you command a spirit to speak the name of any god and they won't, that is not something you should trust. I would say that across the board. So just know that is something I implement. If you'd like me to go ahead and ask them that specific question, I will. And I can already hear a few of them sighing, but it's not like a I don't want to say it. It's more of are we really doing this?
Okay. And then as far as that goes, I don't know. I feel like I got all my questions out on there, so I don't feel like I have a lot to say. I want to say that thank you for telling me your story.
Of course.
I know you don't tell that to everybody, and I'm very flattered that you chose us to tell that story to. And I hate that we've heard so many stories of stuff like this that's happened in the church, and I'm doing what I can do to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, and that's all I can say.
Of course.
And if you were around right now, I would make sure that didn't happen to you here as well, or anyone that you love or know. And so
I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and we're moving on to Coco now.
So I didn't have a whole lot to say either. I was going to keep it quick. I just wanted to thank you for coming on. Thanks for being vulnerable and trusting us with your story. And wanted to let you know we got a common friend there with Big Dog and Raven. So I'll reach out to them after this and let them know that we spoke. And had a great time with you here. Thanks again for coming on.
Larry?
Thank you for having me.
What I normally do is read a verse. Is that okay?
That is absolutely fine.
Well, I got a couple of questions. First off, you already know the one that I want to talk about, which would be one of them, which is Matthew 6:24. And no one can serve two masters.
Yeah.
Now, you're well-versed enough in the Bible to understand what that actually means, right?
I am. Now, the literal translation of that whole verse, if I recall correctly, is no one can serve God and money. No man can serve two masters. No one can serve God and money. And the whole entire verse, the entire chapter is specifically talking about the greed of people, and that when you hoard wealth, you are not serving God. So taking that verse out of context and applying it to a situation where you're looking at me having more than one deity isn't necessarily fair, but I also understand why people ask the question. So what I will say is this, I have more than one child, and I'm capable of loving more than one child. If I can love more than one child, then why couldn't I love more than one God?
Well, I understand that concept. I also understand the difference between the King James Version, the NIV, the NLT.
Yeah,
when they
a lot of
say,
translations.
no kidding. When they say money, when the original content was Mamma, and Mamma was a god of
Agreed.
prosperity and greed. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
I wasn't trying to use that part. That's why I didn't mention that part of it.
sure, of course.
But
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
either
so
way,
I'm familiar with it.
either way, let's just use jobs. You know, if I have two jobs, one of them ends up being a weight. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And
I
then
agree with you.
one becomes the most important job that I must pay more attention to than the secondary job, right?
Of course. I think if you're looking at your relationship with your God like it's a job, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. But what I'm saying is that in that case, I follow after one.
And that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Solomon asked for wisdom, but he married 700 wives. I don't get that as wise in the least bit.
You get wisdom from that really quick, though.
Like, you know, my pastor had once made a point that if he spent one night with every single one of his wives, he would only see each wife once every 3 years. How crazy is that? Not for me.
No, not for me.
Not for me.
I finally have one wife that we are like-minded and Christ-centered in our marriage and in our life, and that it has been the most peaceful of any of my relationships because it's the only one that has God in the middle of it.
God was in the middle of my relationship before, and it didn't save it. It didn't do anything to help it. He was a huge part of it. And even then, you know, your Bible talks a lot about being evenly yoked with your partner. And it sounds to me like you and your wife might be evenly yoked and that you both have a common goal and a common interest, and you're both working equally as hard to help one another. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm very happy for you in that regard. I will tell you that, you know, for me, you have a lot of friends in your life, right? And you probably have a best friend, I would guess, right?
My wife.
Yes.
And then I'm number two. I'm number two, right, Larry?
You're actually number 4.
Whoa, dude. Hey, I'm actually surprised I'm that high. I'm surprised I'm that high.
You made it. You're in the top 10 at least.
Oh my goodness. He's always wanting rank.
Okay, finish your statement, Larry. Finish your final statement.
Well, she was talking and you interrupted her.
Oh, my bad. Well, it's your final statement. She's going to get a talk here in a minute, so you finish your.
You go right ahead, Larry.
My verse is actually Ecclesiastes 7:15.
Okay.
I have seen everything in the meaning. Okay, I'm sorry. Bifocals time. I have seen everything in this meaningless life, including the death of the good young people and the long life of the wicked people. So don't be too good or too wise. Why destroy yourself? On the other hand, don't be too wicked either. Don't be a fool. Why die before your time? Pay attention to these instructions, for anyone who fears God will avoid both extremes.
That's an interesting verse that I'm not sure I recall, but I'm going to need to look at the entire chapter for that one, to be honest with you. I feel like
it's titled The Limits of Human Wisdom.
The limits of human wisdom. I will tell you that I fully recognize that I cannot possibly fathom the entirety of this universe. I know that I am merely a speck in the galaxy. I'm well aware of that, and I would never profess to have all of the answers. And that's why I said, if I am ever wrong, I will fully admit it, because I know I'm not above that. Should that answer ever come, and should it ever be that case, I will let you guys can be the first to know. How about that?
I'd love that.
That'd be great.
Just don't tell me and then tell me on the show or whatever.
With the deities that you're familiar with, which one do you credit with the creation?
None of them. If you want to know my UPG on that might be a long conversation, but I'll try to summarize. The way that I have it in my brain, and this is my unverified personal gnosis, this is my personal belief system. There are deities like gods like Aphrodite, Poseidon, Yeshua, El Shaddai that all exist. And they are all children of the universe. And the universe may be what some Christians believe is God. I'm not sure. But El Shaddai was a real God, a real actual physical Canaanite deity. that is who I worship in that regard. When it comes to the universe is in everything. It's in the air we breathe. It's in the ground beneath our feet. It's part of all of it. So when I look at the universe is what created everything that we have. It is the creator. And I think there's a distinction in my mind between El Shaddai and the creator. And while El Shaddai is a child of the creator, just like we all are, just not saying we're on the same level as gods, but if we are all children of the universe, he is just one of them, and I am a child of God, if that makes sense. So like the universe would be my grandparent.
Where do you base all your stuff off of? Like you obviously know where we base our stuff out of. Where are you basing your belief system out of?
So mine is a conglomeration of a lot of different beliefs. I believe that, like when you go to talk to people and get an argument sorted out, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. No side is one completely right. In my experiences with nature, in speaking with deities and with spirits, and in spending my time where I do and with what I do, this is how I've come to those conclusions. And in the things that I have seen, now, I know that not every witch will agree with me. There are some witches who will say that that is not the case, and I understand, and everybody's perfectly valid to believe whatever they want to believe. In my experience, that is my understanding of how the world exists. And what people call gods, I see as a title for a type of spirit.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. But do you guys, anybody else have anything to say? It looks like we're almost at the end of this thing.
No, but I do want to say thank you. Enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on short notice too, by the way. Like I know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I realized Jess hadn't scheduled you yet, and I see some of your stuff, and I was like, well, you need to ask this girl, see if she'll come on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and
of course, I'm glad.
I offer you blessings for those twins.
Thank you. And might I say, if you will allow me, I would like to offer every single one of you blessings in return. I know that we may not all necessarily believe the same thing, but what you call prayer, I call spells. And I don't need to cast a spell on any of you. That's not what I'm offering, but I am offering to send you any sort of positive energy, be it from me or from any of my deities, that I want you to know the work you're doing is important, and keep doing it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, basically. Okay. And all right. Thank you, Regina. I appreciate it. Have a good one. And I'm sure we'll speak in the future. If you can, if you want to message me directly, email me at info@helpmyunbelief.org, and you can talk to me directly there. I'm going to be off social media for a while, so if you're messaging me on any of my social medias, you won't be getting me, but they'll get me the message too if you message me there.
Sure,
so.
No problem.
But I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. So.
Yeah, and if you ever need me to come back on and you want me to talk about other things, I'm happy to do so. No qualms whatsoever.
Sure. Okay. Take care, girly.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
Everybody was going no to the spells. Angela's going no. What you got any personal assertions on that one? By the way, that Ecclesiastes verse you wrote kind of answered the question from the beginning of the show too. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that after I read a little bit of it.
When you were reading it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's literally.
What was that verse again?
Ecclesiastes
I've been looking
7.
15 through 18. One of the things I was flipping through here trying to find the right verse, and she already discounted several, so it was difficult to come up with something, and I was praying, just show me the right verse, Lord. I really don't know where that came from, because I didn't have my pen marking it or anything, and I looked down and God said, read this.
I know whenever I want to entertain my flesh and I start finding excuses to do that, I start pulling things out of here, from here. Maybe this ain't true. Maybe this isn't true. Well, did God really say this? Because Satan's trying to give you excuses to satisfy your flesh. You know what I mean? And that's why I asked her where she's getting her belief system from. And I'm not saying she's wanting to live a life of sin. I don't know her personal life. I'm just telling you what I do. You know what I mean? And it feels like this. I don't know what inerrant means, but it feels like this is the basis of everything that I believe in. And plus my personal relationship, it verifies it. You know, my personal relationship with God, it's not chaotic. It's very honed in. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to go, and anyone that comes to me and tells me anything in the spiritual world, if it conflicts with this, the simple answer is no, and the final answer is no.
Well, I mean, you know, I have to be quite careful not to debate, because I do have that. Sometimes I kind of can lean that way, and I was trying not to. But when she said that El Shaddai, which is the Almighty God, that's the name for the Almighty God, and Yeshua is Hebrew for Jesus. That's where we get Jesus from. And then she says that they get along. That's why I asked, are any of them jealous? Because the Bible literally says, I am a jealous God. Have no other gods before me. That doesn't mean that have other gods equal or have other gods that are behind me, or, you know, you can follow them too.
Yeah.
But, you know,
the Bible's very clear. Jesus is the only way to heaven. There's only one God.
And that he created all things.
Yeah.
And so she wants to I'm not trying to say her, but when you discount the word, which in John 1:1, it says the word was with God in the beginning, and the word is God.
Yeah.
So when we discount that particular verse in itself, then we can say that everything in here was man-made, and man wrote it.
That's why when we interview people and they say that, and they discredit the Bible, then that takes our, they know that takes our ammo away. I don't believe your Bible's true. And then what do we say then?
But the basis of that is on religion, okay? Or that there's several different versions of the same word. But if everything goes back to the original translations of King James, then you got people that yell and scream about the King James version, and then you got to go to the Geneva, and then you got to go to the one before that, and then the one before that. Let's just go all the way back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Let's all learn Hebrew so that we can get the interpretation ourselves.
I watched a video of
In all honesty, what you read or how you read is an interpretation that very well will be different than my interpretation because of the level that I grew up, or the people that I grew up around, and the definitions of particular words versus yours, because they're different lifestyles.
Yeah.
And we have to be very careful with that. But the Bible is, we are told to trust in the Word of God, and that this is the Word of God. I have to trust that God also protected the Word. Do you understand that? If he's going to give me instructions to follow the Word, then I have to trust that he has protected the Word, and that way I can literally trust in it.
Didn't I tell you and Bladen that same thing last week?
I think we did talk on that a little bit.
Yeah. That's basically what I said, is that, like...
So now you have confirmation from two different sources.
We heard it from Larry, so now we know it's right.
It goes... Yeah, right. It goes...
I wasn't saying that.
It goes back to that first thing I was talking at the beginning of the show, is what's the hardest part about being a Christian? Trusting God, right? And that's what I mean. Like, how can you trust the Bible? How do you know that there's Bible verses that are supposed to be in there that's not, or that the Catholics remove some Bible verses that are supposed to be in there?
That was the Convention of Geneva.
Geneva Convention, but it goes back to what you just said. I trust that if God doesn't want me to know something, then I trust that God's not going to allow me to know it. Or I trust that if God does need me to know something, God's going to find a way to let me to know it, well, I'm open to it.
Are you following religion?
Yeah. Or
are you having a relationship with God?
I was telling you, I watched a video today. It was funny. This pastor was up on the pulpit, and he goes, if you're not reading this King James Bible, then you're going to hell. I don't want it. And he goes, I don't need no Greek Bible. I don't need no Hebrew Bible. That's all I need is the King James Bible. And I just sat there and I said, do you know your King James Bible was translated from the Greek Bible? And without the Greek Bible, your King James Bible doesn't exist? You know that, right?
I heard Todd White say it one time. Hi, Todd. I heard Todd White say it this way one time when one of the guys came up and said, well, you can only trust in the King James Version, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, you mean like the one Jesus carried?
Yeah, like the one that Jesus carried, yep.
Which, it caught my attention and cracked me completely up.
Yeah.
Simply for that, really, in all honesty, one of the things that you agreed with her on, and I started to as well agree, that there are people that turn the Bible into
a God.
Yeah. And it is not, man, I'm trying to be really careful because I truthfully feel that the Word was with God and the Word is God.
Yeah, it's a scary thing.
This is a physical representation
of the Word of God.
Christ. So in my hand. So
you're trying to draw a line in between trampling on it, and I get the discomfort there about talking about it. I get it. And I know it's uncomfortable to talk about. That's why I just straight out said I agree with you that I don't think we should worship the Bible because, and I'll say this, and I think the line is at where I think there are people that exist like Dan McClellan. Dan McClellan exists. That Dan McClellan is a scholar of the Bible. Pastor Gary said there are no scholars of the Bible. There's only students of the Bible, right? Okay. So there's only students of the Bible. So Dan McClellan probably has zero relationship with God, no prayer life. And I don't know.
I don't even know who you're talking about. So
he's famous online. Everybody will know who it is that watches it online.
Except Larry.
He's a scholar of the Bible, right? And he debates the inerrancy of the Bible.
Okay.
But how much prayer life do you have? How much relationship do you have? Are you making that Bible your God, or are you just studying it so you can debate it and give your topics and blow up on social media? Like, what's your purpose here?
So that's knowledge for the reason of knowledge instead of the knowledge to know the Word.
You're worshiping your personal intelligence and your personal relationship with the Bible, but your relationship is not with the Bible. Your relationship is with the God that wrote it.
It should be, yes.
Does that make sense?
I agree with that.
And that's where I'd like the line to be at on there. So
I got one quick correction before we close out too.
I love correction.
When you said
whoa, you're looking at him, not me, right?
Well, if I could look at both of you at the same time.
You guys are so soft.
When you said the Geneva Convention earlier, I think you meant the Council of Nicaea.
There you go. I couldn't remember the name of it. You are correct.
The Geneva Convention is like who holds people accountable for war crimes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
I don't know what either of those things are.
I knew that was off base because I'm like, no, that's a modern thing.
You guys do realize when I say I'm an idiot, I mean it, right? I don't know I thought the Geneva Convention was hair gel.
I can tell you what inerrant means too, if you'd like to know real quick.
No, not interested. I'll forget.
It means without error.
Yes.
I thought an inerrant was an airplane motor, and I thought the Geneva Convention was hair gel. Okay. That's what I thought.
You constantly say that, but we do appreciate it when you prove the fact.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay, we're out. Okay, Larry, take us out, buddy.
Jesus loves you, and so do I.
Oh, my camera's over here. Thank you for watching and listening. We're out. Thank you for watching or listening all the way to the end. To be a guest on the show or to get a hold of us, please contact us at info@helpmyunbelief.org. And more importantly, make sure to check out new episodes every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Central.